In this video, we're going to be replacing the wiper arm linkage bushing on this Ford F-150. You will need to remove your front cowl and gain access to your wiper linkage. So we're going to start up top here with our wiper arms. We're actually going to remove our full wiper arms. To do that, you'll find a little notch right here. We're going to take a long flat blade screwdriver, put it in front of that notch, and twist. And once you get it to a certain point, you may have to grab that screwdriver and push upwards. Once that notch is all the way open, you can then take your arm, open it up, and slide the arm off. There we go. So there's your lock that we were prying open. So there's your lock that holds it on place. Once you get the driver's side out or the passenger side, whichever one you started on, process is same for the other side. So now that you have your wiper arms removed, you can clearly see you have a couple of holes here all the way across your cowl. Inside those holes, you'll have some Phillips screws. We'll remove those. Okay, so we're just going to use a magnet to pull these screws out. So now in the front of our cowl, you can see here by our hinge area, we have one screw over by the fender. Again, these are all going to be Phillips. Now, as you start to follow your cowl in, you'll see this black gasket here, this weather strip. It might be smart as you start to go down here to follow up with a magnet. As you start to reach in, you don't want these screws to drop down. All right, so at this point, our gasket here is off. And one final Phillips in the corner. So now along our cowl here, you see we have one plastic clip to our wiper motor power. We're going to remove that plastic clip from the cowl. Now you may decide to do this step first. As you can see, the cowl is moving a little bit now. But that clip just broke. So the next step now to removing our cowl is we're going to have to lower our hood so we have clearance for our cowl to move forward and out. So now what we're going to do is take our cowl here, we're going to try and slide it forward, which now with our hood at the right angle should give us enough room to slide our cowl right underneath. So now with your cowl pushed forward, you should be able to lift up and over your wiper arm, but we're just doing this here on the driver's side. We'll move over to the passenger side and get it into the same position. Once you're here, you're going to want to disconnect your washer nozzles, and then you should be able to remove your cowl. Okay, so over here on the passenger side, we can grab a hold of the antenna. Work our cowl forward Okay, so there's a little tab on both sides and the corners underneath your windshield trim. You'll need to pull that cowl forward enough to get that clip out from underneath the trim. All right, so now we're able to lift up our cowl, and again, now we're rubbing up against our hood. So now what we're going to do is raise our hood all the way up. Okay, so now with our hood open a little bit more, we can slowly work our cowl off. And this is going to take a little bit of time because you are working a 6-ish foot piece and you're only able to work a side at a time. But what we're aiming to do now is get our cowl most of the way off and gain access to our washer nozzles. So on the passenger side, you have your antenna. Once you get your cowl to a certain point of removal, you'll have access to that antenna cable. If you pull your cowl straight up, grab a hold of your antenna cable and pull on the cable straight down, you can disconnect your antenna. Now try not to let the antenna cable fall into this hole that's here. If it does fall into the hole that's here, it's easily accessible by removing this grommet or this plastic cover here, and you can get into your line if it does fall back inside. Put that back on. So now your washer nozzle, if we flip this up, it's connected in the back by a couple of hoses. Now you can actually take the whole washer nozzle out by pressing in this tab and sending the whole nozzle through, or what we're going to do from the back here is just disconnect the hose from the nozzle itself. And we'll do that on this side and the passenger side. So we'll make a note here that sometimes these plastic, whether it's the hose or the connections on the nozzles, will get brittle over time. So just be careful. All right, and that was easier pulled out of just the elbow right there. So with our washer nozzles disconnected, we can take our cowl and remove it from the vehicle. So now with our access hole here, we can see the bushing that we need to replace. Now this arm here, where our wiper arm went, if we twist this, we're actually trying to move this silver bracket. The black bracket here is an arm that goes all the way across to your wiper motor. The bushing in the center is actually on a ball in a socket. The ball portion is on the bottom end. The socket portion is your bushing. So to separate the two, we're going to come in with a panel tool. And we're just going to see if we can pry that up. I'm going to twist, try and pry that up. And there you have your arm. And then if we reach in here and we twist this, we have our ball. So the ball portion we can twist out of the way for right now. What we need to do is get into the arm and remove this bushing here. So now to remove the old bushing there, you'll notice it has a little rib that runs all the way around it. Now on your old one, that rib is set, and it seems very tough to spin this because you ideally don't want it to move. But you're going to have to spin this so the rib lines up to the two cutouts in the arm. Then you'll be able to remove the bushing. So what we're going to do is grab a pair of needle nose pliers, long needle nose pliers, and see if we can give that a turn. Now from this angle I can see that my cutout is just behind there, just after that rib, right about there. Once we reach that, we should be able to squeeze this through. So now if you're going to remove your wiper arm to get a little bit better access to the end that we were trying to replace, you can follow your wiper arm up towards the center of the dash where you'll find the windshield wiper motor and the stem that pokes out where your arms are. Holding that arm is going to be a clip right at the end of the linkage. So you have to take a flathead screwdriver and open it up off of the end. And then this clip here needs to be worked off. All right, so we're going to open that up and pop out that clip. And there's the clip we just removed. So now with that clip removed off the end, we're going to take that same screwdriver, we're going to push off this linkage arm. So I'm just going to take it off of that arm, and now we can take our linkage right out of the vehicle and work on our bushing outside. So now we have our wiper arm in the vise, and this is the bushing that we're going to replace. Now to get our old bushing out, you can see that the bushing has lines on it. You see the bushing has a rib that runs over across the top. Our old one has the same. In the actual arm itself, there are two notches where it clocks in a certain way. And then you're going to have to line it up so the notches match and push out your old bushing. So now that we have our old bushing out, we're going to take our arm, flip it over in the vise. And again, if you can do this in the vehicle, it's even better. We're going to take our new bushing, line up, and push straight in. Now this should fit tight. Make sure that that bushing is fully seated. See, we have a little ways to go all the way around. So now we're ready to reinstall our wiper arm. We're going to put it through towards the passenger side first, and pull it back to us. First thing we're going to do is put it back onto the wiper motor. And we did apply just a little bit of grease on both ends. Not necessary, but it can sometimes help. Some grease there. And we'll put our clip back in. So now what we're going to do over on our driver's side is turn our blade arm here. I'm going to rotate that up. We're going to find that ball, as well as we're going to find the other end of our linkage arm, and we're going to put the ball into the socket that we just replaced, or the bushing we just replaced. We're going to squeeze those two together. Once you've squeezed those two together and they're firmly seated, that's it for this side. Process is going to be the exact same for the other arm. Okay, so we're going to open our hood back up, just enough to allow us to get our cowl in place. You don't need to open it up all the way. That'll actually hinder the process. With your hood opened up, we're going to take our cowl and start to work it down underneath the hood. Okay, so we're going to lower our cowl down into place. We're going to try and get those windshield arms located if we can. While we're here and we have this pretty well level and tight, we're going to rotate it up we're going to put our passenger side wiper nozzle. I'm going to put that hose back in. And then continuing along to the passenger side here, we're going to put our antenna back in place. All right, on the driver's side, we have our T. Now ideally this line will sit up inside these clips here. And we can start to rotate it down. We're going to need to get this under our hood. So we're going to have to make sure our hood now raises up enough that allows us to work, but without doing damage to the actual cowl. And what we're going to do here is actually try and pull our cowl forward enough to get it to seat underneath our chrome trim on both sides. We're just pushing it straight backwards. And over on our passenger side, we'll pull our cowl forward, make sure the tab here in this corner goes up and under the chrome trim. So now we're at this point, just to make it a little bit easier, we'll close our hood as much as we can. Now this job is actually easier done with two people. It's such a long piece that when you push one side in, sometimes the other side pops out. So we'll continue to work this until we get it all the way pushed back on both the left and right. All right, once you've got your cowl in place and lined up underneath your chrome trim, we're going to look down through these holes and make sure your holes to mount your cowl line up, and we're going to put our Phillips screws in. And then our last one down the passenger side. Once we wrap up these screws, we'll go in front and put our gasket back in and the screws along the front. So now that we have our cowl lined up on our firewall, we can start to install our weather strip here, or gasket. Just going to pre-start that screw. So a magnetic bit here is very helpful. You don't want to drop screws in your engine bay if possible. Try and avoid it. All right, so we'll get this one almost all the way tightened down and continue right along. All right, so this next one here is going to include the bracket for this hose. And the next one we'll do the same. Flip this bracket up. Over on the side here by our fender, we have one more Phillips screw. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now if we follow this down, we have one more Phillips screw right to our fender. And in the same area, if we go backwards a little more, we have our harness here, which for us, the clip for the harness actually just broke. It's very, very fragile, old plastics. So we're going to put a zip tie right through here. right there. And we'll trim the tail of that zip tie. And that's it. So now to wrap up our linkage bushing installation, we're going to put our wiper blades back on. Now, we're going to try and locate our wiper blades in the same place they were when we took them off. This will be your park position, which means your wiper blades are all the way down. So you will have a little bit of play in this arm. So you want to set them right there. Give it a little wiggle back and forth. Make sure it doesn't go high or low. If you're happy with that placement, you're going to press the backside down. So now if you're happy with the placement of your wiper, you're going to take the arm and just slightly pull it up. And you're going to find that clip again, or that lock. You're just going to push that lock down. Once you have that lock pushed all the way down, your wiper arm can be released onto the glass. All right, now onto our passenger side. Again, we're going to locate that wiper in the park position. And you're trying to match the driver's side. Once you have that set, you're going to push that back end down. You're going to pull the wiper arm up slightly. Push our lock in place.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.